We've got a very long raft of political leaders here who have now joined us in order to listen to your presentations and hopefully to carry some of those key messages up the chain and to listen to some of those learnings and see what they can do as part of their work, not just in Parliament, but at a national level too. So I'm going to pick someone then to start, and let's see who's on the top of the list. James, do you want to go first then? And I will move this carefully.
So obviously our workshop was healthy homes, healthy communities, housing, infrastructure and health. And what we looked at was pathways to healthy homes. So it's the concept of healthy homes and it's the intersection of how these all meet. So the first pathway is creating new healthy homes. So building homes right from the very start, preventing future health inequalities. And the second pathway is improving existing unhealthy homes and addressing the poor housing conditions that are held today. So ultimately, we want to meet the goal of having safe, warm, accessible and sustainable homes for all. So the key elements that we looked at that focus on creating new healthy homes were the Future Homes Standard, so ensuring all new homes are built with high energy efficiency, proper ventilation, sustainable materials, and reducing carbon emissions while creating comfortable living standards for occupiers. We also looked at how planning reform can lead to new healthy homes, so embedding health and wellbeing policies into local planning, prioritising green spaces, active transport links, access to services, particularly around NHS and social care, and encouraging developments that prevent isolation, particularly amongst older people who are digitally excluded. So we also discussed more suitable home types, so designing homes that meet diverse needs and is there for an ageing population. So looking at things at the demand for more bungalows, sheltered accommodation, and affordable options for those on low incomes. And we looked at prevention through design. So considering health impacts at the earliest stage of any developments and reducing any future strain on healthcare. So by preventing issues like damp, poor ventilation and unsafe layouts. And we also discussed empowering local communities. So engaging communities from the offset in shaping new developments to ensure they reflect local needs and culture and building trust through the process of these new developments. And it has to be a locally centred approach, recognising that one size doesn't fit all, doesn't suit every area. So the outcome is making sure that we have new homes that are future-proofed, accessible and supportive of both physical and mental health. And the second pathway we looked at was improving existing unhealthy homes, the majority of which are cold, damp, unsafe and poorly maintained. So the key elements that we looked at was retrofitting, so modernising older homes with insulation, better ventilation and energy efficient systems. And we also looked at the Warm Homes Plan, so tackling cold and damp through targeted schemes and grants and supporting those households most at risk of health issues due to cold living conditions. And we looked at air quality improvements. So one of the things that we raised was a register of volatile organic compounds that are within houses, and the idea that that should be promoted, particularly in some way like the Gov.uk website, so people are aware of those compounds which are carcinogenic, for example, within their homes. We also looked at encouraging better design systems that can be fitted into older homes. And we looked at fuel poverty as well, so ensuring residents can afford to heat their own homes adequately and linking with social support services and financial assistance programs. And one of the things that we looked at was digital poverty and digital isolation. So supporting those residents, particularly older, who lack access to digital tools and smart home technologies, as well as internet access. And we looked at home improvement agencies, so providing support for vulnerable and elderly residents to make essential repairs and adaptations to their homes, and being able to provide expertise and funding and local services. And we looked at the Renters Reform Bill as well. So strengthening tenant protections and ensuring landlords maintain minimum health and safety requirements for their rental properties. And we looked at social care integration, so working closely with health and social care services to identify at-risk individuals, coordinating interventions alongside improving housing to support personal care and well-being. Meaning the outcome is healthier existing homes that reduce emergency health interventions and create safer, more comfortable living conditions. Thank you.
That was great, thank you. Peter, is there anything that you wanted to cover that we haven't covered in James' presentation as the facilitator for that session? I'll pass down the mic.
I think that covers most of the points, if not all of the points that we actually raised. There's lots more detail really, so that was the summary. One of the interesting things I thought was the question of care in people's homes and who delivers that, and the standard of delivery, and the people who deliver the care, i.e. care workers, on reasonable wages, conditions, terms and conditions, etc., and the ability to get a better deal, quite frankly, out of the massive amount of money that is there for the provision of care services. So that was an element as part of that issue as well, as to how do you facilitate that care at a level that is a benefit to everybody concerned, and most importantly to the people you're actually caring for.
Brilliant, thank you, appreciate it. So, panel number 2, sprint number 2, we had skills. So, who's coming up from skills? Pat, wonderful. Let me go move the thing.
Thank you. We had a really wide-ranging conversation, and I suppose I can sort of pick up on 5 points. I think, first of all, collaboration. We then shared examples of things in our own personal experience, that had worked. We then talked about what was missing. We then talked about LSIPs as a potential solution. And then we finished off really with the question of, like, what if? What if you had a blank piece of paper? What if it was an ideal world? So I'll kind of pick up on those points. Collaboration, first of all, I think the first thing you said was collaboration. The solution is about partnership working. And we shared examples of that. We talked about NOCN's development of modular stack, is the word, stack qualifications in partnership with employers. Talked about trade bodies kind of working on behalf of employers, with employers, to identify the new skills coming on board. We talked about what the LSIP has done in Liverpool, setting up industry learning partnerships whereby providers come together, training providers come together with employers and work together on solutions. We talked about solutions that we'd seen in the past or that we hope for the present, so apprenticeship training agencies, a concept that we've learned about from Liverpool John Moores University around business clinics, offering opportunities for young people to work with employers on real world problems in a sort of simulated work experience, and we're trying to bring that out of universities into further education colleges. But we then also talked about what was missing and mused on the fact that collaboration is great, but often it can just be a lovely conversation and a pleasant time with other people. So it's about how you create the conditions for meaningful collaboration with impact. And skills is a job for many. It's the old adage, isn't it? It takes a village to bring up a child and all of that. And it takes employers, plus training providers, plus agencies, plus politicians, plus everybody to work out a skills system that really works. We spent some time talking about LSIPs and whether LSIP needed more teeth or LSIPs at the right unit level. You know, should it be local? Should it be national? We talked about a national skills improvement plan. There is going to be a skills strategy. We talked about where the role was between Skills England and local skills improvement plans. And then our facilitators reminded us that we had an exam question to answer. So we then thought about the question around what would a regional skills innovation platform look like? And we kind of went on the kind of what if in an ideal world. So in an ideal world, that would look like a coalition of the willing, to borrow a phrase, creating a network of business clinics across all types of sectors, across our region, where young people can come and have encounters with employers, and employers can learn from the young people. Creating a network of industry learning partnerships, bringing everyone with skin in the game on skills together across and beyond democratic and administrative boundaries. Thank you very much.
I think everything was pretty much discussed that or fed back that we discussed. Interesting point around the right unit level of LSIPs. We mentioned the idea of the kind of the functional economic geography and whether or not your geographical footprint of where your LSIPs are situated actually reflects the travel to work areas, the places where people live and where they work, and whether or not, like you mentioned, the unit level is accurate, whether it should be regional, whether it should be national. But I think on the whole, yeah, a very good summary, so thanks very much for that.
I think I'll probably just add one point, if I may. We discussed all of that. Kate has eloquently fed back, fabulous, but what we also said was we can't just focus on younger learners, and actually it's also very much about upskilling and reskilling already qualified individuals, because obviously careers are progressing, jobs are evolving, and what we need to do is be able to have already qualified workers learn new skills that takes them across sectors. So I think a really good example was for solar, wasn't it? You've got to be a roofer, but also an electrician, and it's having that sort of cross-boundary training as well. So it's not just for young people, it is for everybody, all ages.
That's really helpful. I suspect that might come up in one of the other panels as well. Just to point out, I mean, I know, and I think your session knows as well, that the modular programme that NOCN produced, would it just be helpful just to explain to people what that involves?
Yeah, there is no one modular programme.
Right.
What we're doing now is, rather than just focusing on full lengthly, maybe 2 years, regulated qualifications, from the work that we've been doing in the communities, talking to employers, industry bodies, we've identified that actually we need smaller, modular, micro-credential, toolbox talks, however you want to call it. It's that short, sharp burst of learning that you can add on to any other existing qualification or course. So it's not sort of like one modular course, we're developing them across all sectors so that we're able to very quickly identify if there's a need for training, something new is developed, or we know that there's, something that's released. We're able to quickly jump on that, identify who we need to speak to develop something quickly, get that out so that people can upskill quickly. That's essentially what we're doing with modular learning.
That's really helpful. And actually, some of the conversations we had in our session about social care, where we started off the conversation, some of that would be incredibly applicable as well. Sorry, Patrick, did you want to come back in on anything that's interrupted?
I think we've mentioned pretty much. Oh, well, we didn't mention the underwater basket weaving.
We didn't.
Underwater basket weaving.
I'll just leave it there.
Okay. We'll try and do that after the event, maybe at the dinner bill. Right, our third and final sprint. So, do you want to come? You didn't have a flip chart, we have more technologically useful. Paper.
says the guy from the AI stuff. The role of AI sector in the Northwest. How do we kickstart an AI industry in the Northwest? How do we create that critical mass? As people said, skills. There's a great start with the curriculum for technology in schools, but we need to expand that to cover primary school education, secondary, apprentice, graduate, continuous career development. It needs to include AI. We teach kids languages, we teach them all sorts of using tools, woodwork tools. Why not teach them digital tools as well, so that they can use them safely? We need to bring local universities and local businesses into that, so that the learning is addressing the needs of the businesses and the communities around it. And we need to expand it to cover full career pathways as well, not just the early days. The second topic was infrastructure. Planning fragmentation being one of the key issues with that. We need to put data centres near people, near transport, near energy. One of the big conversation topics was about energy. It's too expensive in the UK compared to everywhere else. In the Northwest here, we have a huge, wonderful offshore power facility. It creates loads of electricity, but often gets dumped because we don't have the storage investment and the national grid infrastructure to be able to deliver that where it's needed, so that needs to be addressed. The next topic was investment. I'll come back to that. The next topic was investment, so incentives. They could be small things like GPU credits for people that start up businesses in the Northwest. It could be apprenticeship funding to tie it into the skills, so that people, we take on people, we start to train them up. We also attract SMEs into the Northwest as well, because then SME will hire 1, 2, 3 people a year. That grows, it builds the community, you get the skills base there, it's something you can grow from. And just to say this point, so skills, assessment, leading infrastructure planning, investment, navigating complicated use cases, complex landscapes. These are all problems we're solving today with AI. So we need to bring AI into the process of actually solving these problems. But how do we bring it all together? One example could be the AMRC model that's used in Broughton. So AMRC is the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre. It's academic and industry. It's based at Airbus in Broughton. If you did something similar for AI, say in Liverpool, where you could bring the universities together, all the high-tech industries, the life science industries, insurance businesses, all these high-tech industries and academia together, you could start to build out these use cases, you could start to build out the curriculums, you can start to build out the skills that people need, and then that's your way to get the critical mass. You can get to the point where it becomes self-sustaining as an industry to give you sort of digital Freeport in the Northwest, where you can start to attract businesses in.
That was pretty comprehensive. Tim, is there anything else you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. I think a couple of things were really interesting. That last point you mentioned about a digital Freeport idea. We talked a lot about incentives and what can we actually do to attract businesses here and to help them to scale. And could we create something which is like a tax-free zone where businesses, not just AI businesses, but the whole ecosystem is attracted here for that one core purpose. And we also talked a lot about how we could join up the different parts of government. And is this, well, there is a unique opportunity here in the Northwest because of the various assets and because of the mayors to create something, but how do we get it all joined up? Is it something we can do regionally through the mayors? I mean, hopefully with the devolved powers, yes. But also there's a role for central government to play. And if central government was actually to point at this and say, we want to do a pilot here and make the Northwest a pilot zone for excellence in AI, that could be a very powerful signal. And it's a lot easier to get that done in this region than it would be nationally. And one of our biggest frustrations is the lack of speed of the AI growth zones. So let's just focus on one here and get it done really well. But yeah, I think Adrian covered off a lot of the other points there, which also just kind of focus back on there's a lot of really good stuff happening out there. And a lot of good programs and initiatives that have been grassroots or local government. And part of the role that we see this wider group of doing is connecting, communicating, which we've been doing successfully today, but keep doing that. Communication is key to then be able to maximise the chance of it all coming together and being joined up thinking. But yeah, thank you.
That's really helpful. I'm going to give Bill 10 minutes just to compile his thoughts after. Furious around so that notes being taken. There's an awful lot of commonalities here between the various different groups, and I want to throw this open a little bit just for the next sort of 10 minutes as such, just hearing from you guys. You're in each one of those sprints, and hearing now what you've heard from each one of those sessions, what you think the sort of key links are, what the key joined up approaches are on this journey. One of the things that we were talking about in our session is sort of taking that person from maybe early years right the way through to end of life, and that their whole journey through society has ultimately been mapped out in some way through the way that these sprints have operated. So I don't know what you've learned from this session today, but it'd be great to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on this and what you might be looking to do to take some of these ideas home back with you into your community to start doing things differently. So Emily is about to thrust a roaming mic into anybody's face who hasn't yet put up their hand. So I'll warn you, I suspect someone in respect of air quality in the home might end up wanting to say something on this as well. So, do you want to go first on that? Yeah, great.
Works. Firstly, Bill, thank you very much indeed for the invitation. I and my colleagues are here at your request. Thank you. It was a wonderful opportunity to contribute to the Sprint workshop. We've coined a phrase, or James has coined a phrase, and it's a pathway to healthier homes. And the idea was that each of these homes has a beginning and an end. And the idea was to try and map out a linear path to what gives a healthy home. And one of the contributions I particularly made was the introduction of an inventory of indoor air quality being posted on a public website, .gov.uk would be a good start. Most of the general public, and indeed construction professionals, are unaware of VOCs present in our buildings. Volatile organic compounds are embedded in virtually every building material and furnishing that we introduce into properties. A large proportion of them contain formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a carcinogen recognised and registered by the World Health Organization. It's in most of our buildings. By placing the inventory in a public domain, it would inform the general public on what they might find in their home if they care to monitor it.
It's a really good example of how that one issue can bring in every single aspect of policy, from what Tim and the AI the session was talking about in terms of digital sensing through to social determinants and improvement in health, but then also planning and then thinking about the skills necessary in order to make change happen and to upskill people to think about doing things differently. It was just an example I thought would be quite an interesting one to sort of draw everything together, really. Has anybody else got any thoughts from the room that haven't been covered so far that they might want to bring up on any subject? Please, yes.
Just very quickly, I think one thing that struck me today is that I think if we had this meeting 10 years ago, I think lots of people would have said, compared the north to the south, and said, oh, we're living shorter lives, we've got more inequality, we've got less money on transport, we're being left behind. And I think what's changed now is that people are talking with a genuine sense of ambition and saying, no, we want to be a pilot zone for AI. We want to be, at the forefront for change that's happening. We want to be at the forefront for green energy. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do, to say, not we want to catch up, but we want to be in the lead, and we want to show people, we want to sort of innovate, and we want to sort of, be at the forefront of things happening. The digital connectivity, all kinds of positive things happening. I think there's a momentum, and I think keep that going. I think it's very exciting to see that positivity being, we want to be first and we want to be the rest.
That momentum has definitely been clear. So I don't know, Peter and Patrick, you want to say something particularly about the sort of way that things are changing in terms of the Northwest, in terms of optimism and dynamism?
The Northwest's future is increasingly bright, and speaking as an MP for Southport, I mean, my ambitions for the town and for the wider region know no bounds, and I know that's the same for my colleagues to my right here. What's really interesting is the government's ambitions and strategy around devolution, and how that can feed into skills growth, how that can feed into economic growth. The new strategic authorities that are coming down the tracks are going to be embedded with a lot more power than the county council in Lancashire currently has. And I know that as well as that, there's moves to increase the number of, or the amount of the capacity and ability of the current metro mayors in the Northwest to flex their muscles. What would really be a game changer, I think, is improved transport links between not just Liverpool and Manchester, but also the smaller conurbations as well. So, linking up Preston back with the other towns of the Northwest, and making sure that people can get to where they need to be, because that then facilitates growth inside.
I almost pick up on a point that Andrew made about us projecting into the future. I'll give an example, and it's almost like it's an anecdote really. Between the early 30s and 70s in Merseyside, we built the first Mersey Tunnel, which was a major infrastructure programme. And in the 1960s, we built the second Mersey Tunnel, which was a major infrastructure project for its time. Because we had a war in between them as well. And in the 1950s, we planned and built in the 60s, and we wouldn't want to do this now, by the way. We flooded a valley in Wales to provide all the water resource for that sort of industrial development. Now, and that's a 40-year period. In my 40-year career in local and national politics in Merseyside, I can't look to any particular programme of infrastructure, not that type, but of that ambition over that period of time, that 40 years, because we've been disempowered with the anal retention of Westminster and Whitehall. And I think the opportunity with the devolution bill are wanting to take our control. The days of being told what to do, what you can do, what you can't do, when you can do, what you can do with, I hope, are coming to a close, because we can't just be dependent on what happens down in the southeast. We've got to, sort of masters and mistresses of our own destiny to get back to where we were in relation to being progressive in what we want to do as a city region. I suspect the same in relation to Manchester and possibly other city regions as well.
This isn't supposed to sound condescending, but Tim and I, for example, on the AI front, go around and speak to large-scale investors around the world, working out what the attractiveness of the UK economy looks like for AI investment. And you have a conversation with them about what does the Southeast AI investment strategy look like, what does Merseyside, what does Greater Manchester's investment strategy look like? It's clear, it's coherent, there's an attractiveness, there's abundant resources, this sort of sense that the Northwest is going somewhere in comparison to some of the other regions which are traditionally known for financial services and the wider sort of services economy. I mean, it is pretty stark now as well, and perhaps there's an awful lot that the South and the Southeast need to learn from what the Merseyside area and the Greater Manchester area and other areas around the Northwest are doing that might actually take a national leadership position as well. So it's incredibly exciting. I'm not just saying that because I'm here. Genuinely, that's what people are saying.